Guys, welcome to Bunny's Designs. For a bit longer than we were last time. So just see if I can find chat. Let's have a look. Oh, he's pretending to be a cat. Sorry, it's not funny. You're not a cat, Alfie, you're a big podge. And he's just fallen off. Oh dear, bless him. So we'll just see if we can do the tweet. Hi Melody, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Fingers crossed we will be a bit better. We will see if we can work this out. So I'm going to be working in my little book of watercolours. He sat on the sofa cushion and it fell off. So he slipped down the back of the sofa. It's quite funny. So, welcome to my... It's tucked up now. Now, there is a little girl, Hissy Spitty, down here. Jessie's back with us, so hopefully she should be okay. So, last week I was working with the pencils, and my wrist... Oh, poorly. So, pencils on me may be traditional pencils. We may have to part company permanently because I can't do with not being able to use my wrist. So we'll have to think about that one. But that was definitely, enjoyed doing it, and nice to show people you don't have to go out and spend hundreds of pounds. This book was £4.99 from Tesco's, and it's because a friend of mine wasn't well, so I sat with her, and of course I didn't have any art things with me, so we went to Tesco's, and my friend, we bought some, her daughter took Tesco's, and we went, and I found those and some pencils, which were the children's ones, and I was very impressed with these, really impressed. They were quite waxy, and they were a lot better than I thought they were. So I can use those for anybody that comes to the Art in the Abbey. So what I thought I would do today is work with my No1 Derwent brush. Bearing in mind, this is, it's like thick photocopy paper. It's not quite as thin, but it's not as thick as others. So I'm not sure how it's going to work. I know I can get away with it just with this No1 brush because it's quite thin. So I'm going to be working out of my little book of watercolours, which I'm going to revamp. Oh, hi Pamela, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else popping in? Oh, the Colouring Heaven book. Yeah, it's really good. I've got a Gothic one, and as I say, I found them in Tesco's for £4.99. So I thought that was really good. But if you go on the website, I think I showed last time. Yeah, oh, they've got dragons and all sorts. And again, there's 40 designs. They are single-sided, so you can think chameleon pens, markers, and you can use stronger things that would go through. I just thought I'd try with these, and there's the colour chart as well, colour combination charts. It happened to be the only one they had, so that was my Hobson's choice. I didn't fancy, I think they had some colouring pencils for us. It's only a little tiny Tesco's, but I chose the children's ones, and actually, as I say, I was quite impressed with them. But unfortunately, this is not good. So pencils are a bit out for me. So I thought I would work out of my little book of watercolours. The other thing I found, I bought this photo book. Now mine had 50 pictures in last time. These are wider. So that's actually brilliant because it's nearly the same size as my original, and it's for 4x6, and it's what I use to make my travel watercolor book. So I shall be revamping this and putting new colours in there. So the Derwent Watercolor 72 will go in there, the Derwent Inktense, the Peerless will go in there, the 100 and some Karen Near Colour 2s will be going in there. And I'll completely revamp this. And I think I've decided I might not destroy this, and I think I might just give that one to my eldest, because she's doing illustration and it would be so good for her. Beg your pardon, not my eldest daughter, my daughter that's at uni. So I also have this little tiny vintage photo album, which I've cut each page. So basically your little photo would go in there and your photograph would go in there. So I've split it up, and the vintage ones have got nicer plastic. And then I'll stick the colours one side and then one at the other. So there's a piece of plastic between to protect them. So if I show this one, there's, I've got all my peaches and pinks, and in between is a piece of plastic so that the colours don't contaminate each other when you shut your book. And there's all 72 Derwents in there. And that one is to fit into my Bible journaling, because the Derwent watercolour pencils do not go through when you're watercolouring on your Bible pages. But when I'm flicking from this particular book, from my Derwent watercolour pencils to my Inktense, sometimes I find myself on these pages, and these do go through. So I thought I would make myself a little one, and then it's just to go in the Bible journal bag. So I'm going to have, I do not use this water brush. It's the only time I don't use a Derwent watercolour brush. I use a damp rigger. And I find that I don't have to gesso, there's no hair dryers, no noise, no coating of anything. I pick this up, I pick a damp rigger up with a baby wipe or a face wipe, recycled face wipe, and I Bible journal colour in my Bibles. So I shall hopefully get a bit more of that done when I get upstairs into the bedroom. So I'm going to be moving the desk, which is a complete mess. Again, if I behind me. So this room is going to be a family room, the studio. The girls have decided that they want to use it more as a family room. So I still have the big desk. So the desk here that has the art in it. So the art for Bunny's Designs under Heather Cross, that channel will be from this room. And that will be the big oil paintings behind, the huge oil paintings and all the artwork. But the colouring and the Bible journaling and the quiet, what I call the quiet channels, they will be done from the desk, and that makes it better because they'll be quieter. Oh, hi, Artsy Mara Designs. Anybody else popping in? So I thought today, I guess because the wrist is ill again, was the normal putting it down to the pencils, because I just knew, I know if I use pencils, as much as I loved it, and it was lovely to show that for a $4.99 book and a set of children's pencils, you can colour and still be quite creative and do the art therapy bit, which is what it's like. So I'll see if I can do the same with the actual same paper. As I say, it's not as thick as the Kirby's, but we'll persevere. This one should be completely fine. I'm going to be using the Inktense on my paper palette because I have a lot of control and I'm not working too wet. I have 72 colours because there's 72 pencils, so I don't need to colour mix. And the other reason for getting rid of this plastic that I hate is when I used to have it, my colours in this one, this is like a palette. So every page had a palette. So I could mix colours together on the plastic. I mean, I could on this one. It's just I choose not to because I just don't like it. But if you wanted something in between this, or you wanted to mix these two colours, you could pick your colour up and mix. And so you have a palette in between each page. And as long as you let it dry, and then you clean it and let it dry, it's not going to contaminate the page, because we don't want to contaminate this. This will leave a good 5 years, if maybe longer, if you use this paper. You can get Sea White of Brighton, but you can also get acid-free 100 GSM extra wet strength. And because it's extra wet strength, it means you can re-wet it. Ordinary sketchbook paper you can't. And if you use that one, these little things can be re-wet so many times and last years. So again, if you're going to make a little book like this, it's nice to have it lasting for years. I've never been happy with this one after I revamped it. I still wanted to go back to my original one. And then when I bought the books, I thought these had gone up a little bit, these albums. And this one, they're $3.50. The other ones were $1.50, but I never thought anything about it because it's a long time since I bought them. But these are 100 pockets. You may find the thinner one, which just has one section in it. And that's quite nice for hands. I can't put my hands on them at the minute, but I will when I get everything sorted. And it's a photo album, but it has a nice section. And I'll show you, there's a different way of working with this one than this one. Technically, you don't destroy it. Technically, I make, in my first book, you'll see I make paper pages from some of my early videos. I make paper pages from photocopy paper. And then the extra wet sketchbook paper that has the squares on it, I stick to the photocopy paper, and it works really well. So we need to watch that space, so I shall be doing that in the if I get a chance to do it for next week, we will do a whole show and really put some colours into a book from start to finish, because sometimes I think it's always easier to see something real time, and also difficulties and ease as well, if that makes any sense. Hope that made sense. So basically this is extra wet strength sketchbook paper, and again, when I originally made it, I made them all little squares. Now this is the peeler, so it's different, but these were the squares that I made. This is extra wet sketch, exactly the same squares, except for this one I stuck the peelers on, but I did the little watercolor swatch. And they lasted years and years. And then you can, when you've used a lot, say this one here, the felt green, if I touch here, I've got a light colour. And if I touch on the darkest, I get back to my original colour. So again, you've got 10 shades for each square, which when you're using the Derwent Inktense pencil, you've kind of not got that scale or scope. So I thought I'd just have a bit of a play, because again, poorly wrist, you can do this if you're not feeling particularly well, and I call it touch and go. You touch, you colour, pick your colour and you go. So these look like the Chinese flowers, I think. So let me see if I can get in the right position. And again, another thing to do is I need to be in the right position for the iPad. And apologies for the yucky thing. They're sending me a new cable for my new camera, so I might actually be able to make a proper video, which would be nice. But you've got to be comfortable. That's the other thing. You have to be comfortable, because we're doing this because we like doing it. We're doing it because we want to be creative, and we're also doing it because it's a bit of therapy. Any hobby is therapy, even it doesn't matter what it is. And see, but you have to be comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, one is you're not going to do it for long. The other one is psychologically you're not going to want to pick up your colour book, because in the back of your mind it's, well, I had backache the last time I did that. So again, you've got to be comfortable, you've got to be chilled and in the right frame of mind. And the only time that didn't apply is when, again, I still go on about when my husband had a stroke. You can still use it for therapy, but I didn't think about colour. I just picked the red and the green, and I used it kind of mindless. So it works for whatever particular situation you're in. But if you want to be like today, today is a creative day. Today is, I want to do what I want to do, and I want to be that little bit more creative. So I might want to create a bit more shadow. And I might want to think, well, if the light's coming from a certain way, then the shadow will be on the other side. So sometimes you want to do that. Other times you really do not want to think that. You just want to pick the colour and just mindlessly colour, because that's what's helping you. So again, it depends whether you've got to be in the right shape of mind, you've got to be comfortable, you've got to be warm, and you've got to have something that you like working with. Now, I love my No1 paintbrush. I can work for 12, 13 hours with this brush. It doesn't hurt my hands. My hands don't hurt the next day. A couple of hours with pencils, my wrist is bad for a week. And again, that's another thing. And I worry that when people are doing pencils, and I have been drawing since I was younger, but I started when I was 18. So again, maybe I have arthritis in the wrist because I've been using pencils and pens. You have to think about this, that if you're going to colour for 10 years, you probably will get arthritis because you have a repetitive strain. It's like people that play tennis, they have tennis elbow. It's like people that ski, they've got skiers' knees. Footballers get bad ankles. It's the hazard of the game kind of thing, but you have to think about that. But I know that this is why I designed it, not just for the disabled, that you touch and go, and because all the bounce is in the little brush. There's no bounce here. When you're touching a pen like that, that ricochets through all here. But when you touch this and this, the bounce and the pressure is all here. And you find that there isn't much in your wrist at all. So have you got any questions? The protective cover, do you mean this one, Melody? Is that the one you mean? Molly says, have you put a protective sheet between? This one is, this basically started out, sorry guys, as this. It's a photo album from the range. Hi Jessie. Hi Jessie Doos. Alfie, that's naughty. Leave her alone. She'll come out in a minute. So this is a photo album, and it's probably actually to do, because I didn't realise these two were the same. I thought this was the original one. So when we turn it over, they're almost identical. So this probably holds 100 as well. Now, because this is a nicer plastic, I used my original method. But because this was horrible and I wanted to try and stuff it as much as possible, I cut the plastic sheet. So if you look at the back, this is a page. Sorry, my hands are really bad today. So we have a page here. And basically, this is what you have. You put your photograph in there, and then you put your photograph in there. This one, you put your photograph in there. So that's where you put your photograph for this one. This one is a page, and you have a photograph at either side. And then you'd put another photograph there. But what I've done is cut right round, and you see it's horrible. I can't cut very straight. It's a thin, nasty plastic, and I just could not get on with it. Now, when I bought these, I hadn't realised these were double. So again, it's that square, and again, when you pull your hands, sometimes that square is just the wrong place to have a corner. But I shall make through. Hi Pamela. No, the brush, when you do watercolouring, which is what I invented, watercolouring is colouring with a brush. When you use any brush, it's all soft. The riggers are soft and bouncy. The No1 brushes. The only reason I use this one is if you have, like I have, arthritis in the shoulder and the elbows, you're moving like this to wash your brush out, then you're coming back, then you're moving the brush again. And this hurts my hand on a day like today. So my way of doing it is you have your colour here, you touch and go. You're not actually moving any part apart from your hand. Hello, Bungle. We have a boy. Hello, Bungle. Hello, darling. Hello, darling. You see, this is why I'm going upstairs. So we're going upstairs so we don't have the bungle. Yes, and are you going to sit? I know where you're going to sit. Yeah, I know where you're going to sit. Never work with children. No, that's my water. You've dunked your nose, snotty nose, in my water. Thank you. I know you're beautiful. He's still snotty, bless him. He's beautiful, but he's snotty. He's beautiful and fluffy and snotty, aren't you? You can hear him grunt. He doesn't purr. He can't purr because he's permanently bunged, aren't you, Bungle? But he's so fluffy. You're beautiful, Bungle, aren't you? Sorry, guys. It's turned into a bungle cam. Hello, darling. A beautiful boy, aren't you? And you know you're beautiful, don't you? Mm? He does love this room. He does love this room, don't you, Bungle? But he's a bit of a hairy boy, aren't you? So where are you going to be? Are you going to be, do you want to be here? Do you want to move my pencils out of the way? We'll move everything out of the way for Bungle. Are you going to sit there? Are you going to sit there? You're going to sit there? There's a good boy. He says, no, I'm going to sit here. We're going to have to paint around your tail. Can I have my book back, please, darling? Thank you. Thank you. Good boy. Thank you. Good boy. Good boy. He's so fluffy. He's so fluffy. You're beautiful. Why? He's got all these lovely cushions and he wants to be on a hard table. I'm going to push everything off now. He's so quiet. He was like this when he was a kitten. He was just such a quiet little boy. All the kittens were going mental and he just sat and he played a little bit, but he was like, okay, I've played now, that's it now. But that's because he was snotty. Oh, delightful. That's nice. Right, sorry guys. I did resist him for about 4 weeks. I have a little job going to play with kittens and poorly cats, which is where we ended up with both Jessie and Bessie. And my job was to play with kittens and loved doing it. Oh no, here he goes, look. Isn't it beautiful? I can't help myself. He's just so beautiful. He's got dirty feet. He's a beautiful boy. He wants to play, that's why. He's being mischievous. You want to play, Bung? Uh-oh. Oh my goodness. So we'll have on Alfie's World. Alfie has a channel and I don't think he has any subscribers yet. So we've got Alfie's channel. And I'll put all the pet things on there. And while we're here, we may as well have an Alfie cam. He is here. He is here very quickly. Although we haven't got Suzanne here, who is Alfie's mama. There's the boy being a grumps. Alfie, good morning. Alfie. Sulky, but he's sulking. So head the bung. Head a bungle. Yep, so we've got a paw in the way. Sorry guys. Can't help it around here. And somewhere underneath is Jessie, and I was hoping Jessie would get on the table, but we'll have to wait and see. Actually, I didn't put a protective sheet under the page. It's that's what I was thinking if you were doing it with pencil. But I was because of my wrist, I wasn't pressing down. So if you're a person that presses down with the pencils, and again, I don't sharpen the pencils. I use them when they're quite blunt. and I used the side of the pencil. I think I did, if you watched the video from last week. But I don't tend to sharpen my pencils because I glide them across. But even holding a pencil and that action does something. Oh, Melody says she's subscribed for Alfie. Yes, we'll have to get some more Alfie videos. I've got a problem with this, the iPad. I've made lots of videos and it won't upload them, so I might have to revert back to the old phone. And maybe back to the old phone and the camera. So we have to watch this space. But we've got lots of videos of the kittens and the cats and all sorts playing. So we will see the animals, but they probably won't be. They probably won't be. I didn't, Melody. No, yes, I was saying last week that if you were using pencil, you may want to put something underneath because pencils tend to make marks. But I don't think I did. I think I did really well. I think I did quite well. I mean, I did put a little shadow in here. No, that's naughty, Alfie. I think of the 700 and some videos that I've made, Alfie's back every single one. So I'll have a go with this one. We'll start with the hands. So I'm going to work with the inktense. So they're going to be a bit... Alfie, that's enough. Enough. Now I do have... I will actually use, because I found it, I never thought I would like a sponge, but actually I do like this sponge that's in this set. So I've been using this. So I'm going to find a sponge and cut it. When you've quite finished. Enough. No. Put the woo-woo away. This is the culprit for the woo-woo. Very pretty boy. Very naughty. Alfie. Shh. He's beautiful, but he's naughty. Alfie, can you behave yourself? Good boy. There's nothing about... We've just got wind and birds kicking about. I'm moving the table, so I've moved all the chairs out. I have to remind myself not to drink the water because Bungle's been in it. I think it was the little kitten last time that went in the water. So, let's bear with me a second. So I'm going to keep that out. I may do another one with those that little set, and you can see again how easy it is. But I like them, but they're not my typical colours. And again, you would think that's silly because they're inktense and these are inktense. But when you touch this one, you've got very vibrant colours. But sometimes I'm not in a vibrant mode. So again, I like the fact that for every pencil I have 10 tones. So I've got sherbet lemon or sun yellow, really strong, or I've got a beautiful soft, almost a straw highlight. So again, it's not always exactly what you want. Different things make you want to make things different ways. So we have the tree coming out. Don't know where that branch goes. So again, sometimes what I like to do is, instead of doing the hair, because I want to highlight in a dark light, I might do the branch first. And then once I've got the branch, I can see the hair behind. Because sometimes you look at this and think, oh my goodness me, just can't see what's what. See, I can see that branch to there, but then I can't see what happens to the branch at all. So that's a bit strange. So I think I'm going to do the branch first. But what I would normally suggest is you work left to right. Sorry, right to left if you're left-handed, and right to left if left to right if you're right-handed, because your hand's working here. And you haven't got your hand on your work. that's another way to work. Or have a piece of photocopy paper just on the top there, so you're not transferring all the oils onto your hands. Now, I don't really need to be bothered to do that. Now, flesh colours, let's have a look what we've got. If we look at the pinks and the pinky reds, even here, they're a bit strong for flesh tones. So we could look at Sicilian yellow. It's a bit pale, but it's not a yellow pale and it's not an orange pale. So I think we could go with Sicilian yellow actually, so we'll just touch a little bit. And so what I tend to do is to have the colours there and here. So again, I'm not moving far away. So we'll go on the underneath first and just picking up a little bit. I'll put that back into here in a second. Now, it's a bit yellow, is that, but I don't want to be particularly... This is a golden sienna, that's a little bit warmer. A burnt orange is quite nice. The other thing to do is to test it. And again, I've been really naughty. I haven't got a piece of paper, so I'm just going to do it on the... I could do it on the edge, actually. You can either do it on the edge or do it on the back of this one. That's actually a better fleshy colour. So this one is burnt orange 260. Let me just see if I can do that. You can see exactly what I'm doing there. So again, instead of touching here to get the strong colour, I'm going here to pick up a little bit of pale. Because I'm not really happy. That's a bit better. I wasn't really happy with that yellow. So I'm going to leave that to completely dry and just work my way around here. Again, I'm not really enamored with that colour really. Probably what would be better is to mix the two together. But again, it's just putting colour on. And then if the light's on this side, you start this way and work across. Now, it's a little bit wet, is that, but it can just about stand it, but no more, and no more rubbing. You have to leave it. So again, sometimes if you get a line, that's it. That's why I probably wouldn't start with, I wouldn't normally do that is a bit dark, that. I suppose it shows a shadow. And just keep on the real pale side. And then really pale for the skin, because we really don't want a lot. And you can see the page doesn't really like it that much. It's letting me give a little bit, but definitely not a lot. It doesn't like it. And then if we start under here and work down. And I love the Derwent brush because if you activate the tip, you get a little bit of water all the time, but if you wiggle it too much, you get lots of water. So we want to just activate the tip very carefully, and then we just get that lovely amount of water, which is not too bad. Maybe have a little bit of a crinkle on there, but it's worked, it's fine, and it's a colour book. So it's allowing me to work in a fairly thin paper. I really want the face to be so pale, so we'll start where there's going to be shadow and stick. I mean, there's so much colour here, that you wouldn't think. So again, this is the rule of, yes, it's inktense, and yes, it's actually set, but it isn't, because this has been wet so many times. Sorry about Alfie. Alfie, please be a good boy. And if you're a bit careful, you can create. Oh, that was a bit. That was a Jessie do. It's a Jessie cry. So you could do the bit, and you could possibly leave that. And then you see that's having quite a good rub. Now I wouldn't revamp it, I would leave that because it's got quite soft and thin. Let it to dry, and then you can revamp that and it will be perfectly all right. So I've managed to get a little bit of colour. I think we'll make her a dark colour. Dark brunette, that's what I mean. She can be a brunette. So let's look at, again, I look at my colours, and I think oak is a cool, that's kind of a nice warm brown. Saddle brown's quite nice. So again, I've put my browns, my warm browns, and my cooler browns and olives, but I can see them all at the same time. Hope that makes sense. So I like the fact that I can see them all and think, well, okay, all browns, do I want a warm brown or a dark brown? And then I've got the greys the same, warmer greys and cool greys. Same with the blues, cooler blues, purple blues. So I think I like oak. I used that last time for a colour for a hair, and I kind of like that. So again, we touch that little bit here and pick the darkest, and then, oops, hopefully we can focus. So we'll go under there. And again, it's almost been grayscaled for us, so we don't have to do too much work. Now this is the trick. It's a bigger space, it's a wetter page, a wetter area. The page won't like it. So see if we can break it up. So even if that's all one, we'll see if we can break that up into a smaller section. It does two things. It creates more of a hair colour, and it also stops the page from disintegrating a bit. Use the same technique with the pencils. It's just and then that stays perfectly flat, perfectly dry, and you don't wet your brush too much. And this little brush should just keep going and going. It's quite a good, well-behaved little brush, is this one. It's my favourite brush for colour books, the most versatile. And then when you get very dry, squeeze a drop out. Oh, I don't seem to have any water in it now. That's good. Right. Well, seeing as Bungle's put, now this will hurt my hands, but I can show you how easy it is. I'll just pop that there a second. So seeing as Bungle's been in my water, I'll show you how to refill this. If you don't have a sink, so you nip, you tip it out, you let it go, and you've got that much. You nip, and you wouldn't do it over your work because you do this 3 times. And the other thing is that keeps you going most of the day. It's very rare I run out of water when I'm using it in a colour book. I don't think I tend to use this on watercolour paper, this particular fine brush, because it's so nice. I use the No. 2 Derwent brush if I'm using watercolour paper. I hope that makes sense, guys. So thanks for joining me. Hope everybody's okay. Anybody got any questions? Anybody working in any books today? Anybody working in watercolour? Has anybody made a little watercolour book? She does look a little bit pinky, but we'll see if we can. We'll see what we do with her. So again, start where it's a bit darker and then just stroke up. We're just stroking the page. This does 2 things. It allows us to work wet, and we don't damage the page. It's not just the water that damages paper, it's the rubbing. So again, we don't have a lot of, if we're not quite right, we can't go back in it. We leave it and then go back to it. And I'm still working on the very lightest little section here. And remember about Inktense pencils, yes, they do fix, but you have to have the right amount of water, because this has been wet many times and yet it's still giving out colour. But it's not giving out this colour, it's giving out this colour. And there's no reason why we can't go back in there a bit later and darken things up, but this is just one colour. And I wasn't going to do the hair. I remembered I wasn't going to do the hair. And of course, we end up with such a pale bit up there, we leave that. That's going to be a lovely highlight. And it won't show up until I put some more darks in. Hope that made sense. Oh, Melody says she's still working in the book. I can't remember which one it is, Melody. I do apologise. Which one did I send you? I can't remember which one it was. My brain. I'm sorry, Melody. My brain. The little what's it one? A gentleman bought that at the Abbey, and he's loving it. The little brown, was it the little brown one? My brain has this headache has completely thrown me. Now I will actually work slightly darker under there because I know I want to be darker under there. So, and again, that's going to make things a little bit better under there as well. But again, still got colour on there, so go somewhere dark, then go somewhere light. This is how I did this one. This is exactly how I did this one. Is you go somewhere light, somewhere dark, then go somewhere else, then come back when it's lighter, go somewhere else, come back when it's lighter, and so worked all over the roses. So I had a light next to a dark, this one, so worked where it's the darkest, then went somewhere else, then somewhere else. But if you haven't got many petals, work to another one. So some are slightly darker because I went there, then came back, went over there, came back, went over there, then at the end went right to the top. And this is working so simply, not really thinking about light and shade, because obviously I've got light down here and light up there. Not even thinking about any kind of light and dark shade or anything, just touching colour and colouring in. And I say this is the one I did when my husband was having his stroke and I was on the stroke ward at York Hospital. And this is what really made the therapy side of it work for me. I know I bang on about it. I would never have believed it if I hadn't actually had to use it. I couldn't read, I couldn't concentrate on anything. I just had to sit on the stroke ward for 4 or 5 hours. Grabbed this, didn't think I would do it, but I did. And I used these two colours, which are still trashed. I used the grass green touch colour and moved it about. And of course, on a stroke ward, and I used the tea rose red, and I've had to revamp that one because underneath it's all gone. But that was so therapeutic for me. It kept me calm. I did it one-handed because I was holding my husband's hand with the other hand. And it kept me really, really calm. And I can't stress enough how that was so good. So again, completely different to what we're trying to do now. But again, touch the dark. And instead of thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with the colour that's on here? Go somewhere else. And it's light. Oh, sorry, Melody. Oh, yes, I sent Melody the little book. It was the smaller version of this one, wasn't it, Melody? Did I put Derwent, I think I put some pencils in, and the peerless. I think you had some peerless in as well. So for Melody, I made her a little book, very similar to mine, with some colours in, so that it would be easy to use. Sorry, Melody, my brain's not, my brain's googled. So you find that it doesn't hurt your hands as much, doesn't it? I don't think it does. Well, there is a No1 brush in your little box of goodies, Melody. I found a No1 brush, a Derwent brush, because I know, again, that's easy to use. Where was I now? I was looking in here. Now, if you leave that and come back to it, you can start all over again with darker colours. You could build on it like you do with watercolour, but the difference is with watercolour you can keep going and going and wetting and wetting and wetting. This one I would give at least 24 hours before you go back into it, but there's no reason that you can't, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. I actually think that the combination of those two colours makes the flesh colour, so I think that's where I'm going to go with that one. The trick is not to forget what colour you were using, because I've got a memory like a sieve. So again, we've got oak there. So again, if you go back to the darkest, I can show you the darkest. So, and again, this is inktense pencil scratched onto extra wet strength paper palette. Now, you don't have to make a little book. You can scratch lots of colours together, and I'll be using that technique with my Derwent watercolour pencils, because that's how you can do some fine art and fine watercolours. And that's why I love my Derwent watercolour pencils, because you don't need anything else. So if I go where it's really dark and really pick up that colour on there, I did go under there before, so I'm just going to go under here, and then when you've dragged it round a bit, again, you see I messed up there. I shouldn't have stopped. But that's probably as much as it wants to do. And again, what I need to do again, because this is a big space, if I wet all that space it would buckle. So what I'm going to do is just pick up that little bit and then just tease it down so I've got a natural highlight, and then go the other way. So we've got a dark and dark and the highlights in the middle. And if you're not quite sure about this method and it's frightening because it's wet on photocopy paper, photocopy a favourite page in a book that you want to colour and practice. That's what I did. And by the time I'd done this full page, it was the, what do we call that book? It was the Colin Thompson Fantastique. And I photocopied it, and I actually left the book at home. I went away for the weekend to a model railway show, and I sat behind the model show with my little book, and I had a rigger, and I just sat and coloured in the actual photocopy, and it was actually folded up like a piece of paper into four. Folded it up, put it inside the book. So I just had the book, and it's still one of my favourite pages. In fact, I may do that again actually, because I did like that book. I may buy that book again, I think. We'll have to see. I didn't buy any colour books for Christmas. I was very good. I didn't even buy the Kirby Roseanne one. I was really good. I didn't buy any colour books. So again, you can change this, you can build up, but again, it's a watercolour. The same with pencil or anything. You need to leave your lights to darks, because you can't take the light away from a dark. It's not like oil or acrylics. In oil and acrylics, if you put dark, you can put white on top and you've got white. You can't do this with pencils and with water-based products. So you always have to do your lights and then leave them alone and just work on your darks. That's how I do it. I think that's probably the best bit. So again, just touch this little bit here. Sorry guys, I'm trying to stay in frame. And then under there. Now these could be a bit stronger, but I kind of like this pale. And again, this is Inktense pencil. You wouldn't get these beautiful soft colours with Inktense pencil if you were touching the end of the pencils. It's not always that easy to do that. Now, what I need to do now is to do the tree, because I'm worried that I can't see the tree and the branches. I can see them to there, then they disappear. So I'm a bit concerned about that. So now I need, although I've used oak for that one, amber's a warmer one. Leaf green isn't. It's quite. I think it might actually have a leaf green. It's an olive with an amber. Let me have a quick look, see if we've got anything else. They're two dark greys. Let me just have a look. That one's too purpley and cool. I think I might just go with an amber first. Or there's a mustard, which is quite warm. I think I'll do a mustard. So we've got mustard here. So again, I'm not going to bother cleaning the brush. I'm just going to go where it's the lightest. So we're going to be in that range up there. The lightest. If I went to the dark bit there, the pure colour, I get the darkest colour. Okay, that makes sense, guys. So again, if that's the lightest side, this is the darker, if you want to think that. So if I touch here, I've got a natural highlight straight away. Now it's probably a little bit too pale, is that, but the other thing it's going to do is just show me what's hair and what's branch, because again I get quite confused. And the lovely thing about it, it's completely dry, so if the doctors call you, you can shut the book. And so again, I love that. So I'm using amber. Now if I was here on my own, I would do this because it's just easier. So hoping that Jessie might put an appearance in. As I say, I can always darken it at a later date when it's dried, but it's just going to give me that little bit of, I'm sure that's a branch as well. I'm not sure how you would do that with pencils. I just find it's always easier to work light to dark, that's all. Now obviously the light's coming from the other side of this one as well, so the more I use the brush, the more water comes. So again, you sometimes just stroking the tip is going to keep it so much lighter. Seems to be a stem there. And again, in an ideal world, you would turn it so that it's easy with that wrist action. It's easy. Instead of trying to do this or do that, you need to turn it so that it's just easy, and you've got more chance of staying in the line doing that as well, because you're not twisting the wrist around when it doesn't really want to be twisted around. Has anybody got any questions? So thanks for stopping by, guys. Had a bit of technical difficulty this morning. I'm desperate to use my new camera, but I bought the wrong. I checked it 30 times before I bought it, but I still managed to buy the wrong connector. So as soon as I can get that off, and then I think it will be quieter. So that's showing that a little bit better, the hair. It's showing that bit better. And I do this with the Kirby's. I find the leaves first, then I do the flowers and the petals, and then I put the I find things that are easiest to do, put it that way, that like the fauna and flora. It just makes things that bit easier, because if I was trying to do the hair, the chance, and it's a darker colour, chances are I would go over some type of thing, some type of branch. So I've got a branch here, and then it kind of double backs on itself, and we have, oh, that's not a branch, that is it, that's a branch, and that's a branch, I think. And of course these are all the same, so later on you can put shadows behind to make the others pop forward. So, but we're not thinking about that at the minute. All we're trying to do is just get so I think this one goes to back there. It's a thick branch. And then that one kind of goes in there and kind of just disappears, so there's a little one there. I think we've got them all. I'm not sure what cut to do. They might do a really rich red to go to nothing, but we'll carry on with the hair, because now I know that most of that is hair behind, and I'm not going to get into trouble when it comes to the branches. So we'll go back to, I think it was oak. I used my oak colour upside down. Oh, hi Pamela, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else popping in? Just say hi, I know you're there. So go back to the hair. So again, I just thought this would be just a nice way to kind of use this book. And you can see the amount I'm using. Now, because there's a lot of hair, I might use a fair big square, but again, you can see it doesn't use that much. And we're getting these beautiful soft colours, and you can start the dark and take it back that way. So there's two ways you can do it. You can go light to dark and dark to light, create a colour effect. And if you work different ways, your chances are the colours of the hair and the tones are different. So you don't get repetition, so that you don't get streaks or anything like that. So again, sometimes that's quite nice as well. And there's nothing to say that when we've done this, we can't go back in there and make some darks if we want to. But what we're doing is just putting a first layer on. And by doing that, we make the flowers stand up. And we're still working quite, dries almost instantaneously. And that's why you can do this on a Bible page, because we're using very little water. I wouldn't use, but I will test this one out on when I do the Bible pages. I don't normally, but I will test it out and see just if we could. But I am working fairly dry because I'm not activating too much of the brush. If I was swishing round and activating this bit of the bristles, I'll get quite a lot of water. But of course I don't want to do that. I want to keep my page flat. So when you want to be a bit darker, you just move to the next bit. So you can see that is quite dark and quite light. So we can do the one underneath it. Again, I've got a contrast straight away. Oh my goodness, we've got the sun. You see, that's the other thing in the studio upstairs, or my bedroom rather. I'm more control of the lights. Again, you have to think of different things. I think that is a branch actually. I just have to have a look. I don't know hair that grows like that, but I just think it's a bit of a wayward one. Again, I must have just touched it. Didn't squeeze it, but it's just given that little bit extra water out. But we won't panic, because one stroke and it's fine, it's going to dry. And I think this is where the hair goes into thinner strands, so we've got to think a bit more carefully now about that. So again, you can put that like that. And so we don't get too confused, and just turn the page across a bit. Do that section so that we didn't do both sections to make it really wet. We've done one and then we do the other. And if it's slightly different, it doesn't matter, because it's hair, so the highlight would be somewhere slightly different. So I'm actually going to work backwards, I think, now from here, because I think I'll end up making a boo-boo. So take that back. So the little bird is having a chirp. Don't know what they've seen. That could be a lot of hair, so we might be okay actually. Again, we've got that one. So I hope everybody's well today, and thanks for joining me, guys. Had a bit of a bungle cam. Alfie's gone to sleep. Bungle's gone to sleep. So everybody's having a nap. little Jessie might come out. But every time I shout Jessie, Alfie's jealous. So Jessie may come out if the others are asleep. But we're going to officially adopt Jessie permanently. So it's going to be tough love. She's just going to have to live with everybody else. She doesn't have a choice now. She doesn't have a choice. We've pussyfooted about enough with her. She's not scared of anything. I think she's just unsociable. So I think she's like Betsy. But Betsy's come round, so it's just going to be a long job. But you know, we let Alfie in the room, and she hisses and spits, and Alfie looks and goes, okay then. Alfie fell in love and was best mates with one of the kittens that we fostered for a while. And I think he's probably got in his head that every cat is going to love him, and he wants to snuggle with every cat. So again, it's a learning curve for Alf. But she's fine. She's eating. She's meowing at night. She's doing fine. I had a bit of a poke in her ears, so she hasn't probably forgiven me yet. She's a bit of a sulky girl. Jessie is very, very sweet. She's such a tiny little girl. She's so diddy. But at the same time, she's a little bit demanding, but again, that's fine. We don't care. It's like Bungle. We all love Bungle. And Bungle's spoiled, so we don't really mind. It's just that she has kept me up for a couple of nights. But again, she's settling in, so that's perfectly normal. So I don't know if you can see all that's going on. I seem to have got the sun with the branches again. So that's what we've done so far. Again, it's not brilliant, but we can go back in there and we can make some nice darks. We could even put some, like that, sorry guys. We can even put some, and that's the other thing about the painting as well. So we could put some, what am I going to put there? Goodness gracious me. And of course, it's going to be quite difficult to muck up hair because, you know, if you've got hair like that, like I used to have, chances are it goes everywhere and it looks everything. So it's going to be fine. You're not going to really mess up. But we can do some highlights and some lowlights a bit later. And again, I'm still working fairly dry. I quite like going light to dark and dark to light. And again, we're working really dry, not wet at all, just barely damp. So that's good for the paper. It's good for the colour as well. And you will get used to, again, if you did this a photocopy paper page, by the time you finished a full page, you would get to know the water, the colours, because different colours, different strengths of water-based medium work differently. I love the inktense because we've got that strong colour, but we've got pale if we want it. So I've used that much to do the hair, so that's not so bad. I keep thinking that that's going to be hair, but we'll see. I think it is. It is now, not a branch. I think it could have been a branch, but it doesn't have the things on it. So again, you just keep having a look. No, that must be and again, this is where you really need to have a look and find what's what. And I think I'm going to put that as a as hair, because I want that to look, so that's behind that one, but we do have some hair there, so again this is where you have to think, yeah, I'm going to have to just go in there and thicken this up a little bit. And again, I think that's a hair as well, so is that. And then, as I said, at a later date, when it's had time to dry and to get over the shock of the water and the rubbing, we can go back in there with the same colour or a shadow colour and make things come forward and go back. So again, that's another thing to do. I can't work out if this is hair. I think it is, but again, you wouldn't have more hair at this end and less hair at the other end, so it becomes, I don't know if that's a wispy thing. Again, that's always the difficulty when you haven't drawn things yourself. You're never quite sure what's what. And I've missed a branch there, so we do have a branch there. So I think we had mustard. Oh, sorry about the lighting. That's really bad, isn't it? Oh my goodness me. Let's see if I can move the camera to this side, guys. Oh, thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. Yeah, Jessie was the sad tale, and she did go and she was quite well behaved, but she kind of must have bonded with me, and that was kind of her thing, and it was a bridge too far to be having to start all that again. I think that's basically what happened. So we just decided that she would come to live with us. So as you can see, that's what I've used. So it's only the size of my little fingernail. So really, we've done a fair amount on that page. And we've got some quite nice highlights and shadows. Now, and this end here, I will show you the same colour, which is oak. That you can go in there and really start to create. Again, I probably wouldn't do it so early, but just to show you that you can go in there and the same technique. And then of course the highlights would look lighter. Remember what we say about highlights? And kind of so we can start to then play with real proper highlights and lowlights and shadow areas, and then the highlights will look so much lighter. about that, but again you see it's a bit difficult angle for me, but this is where you can start to kind of play about a bit. Hope that makes sense. So I'm not happy with that pink, so the colour I used was, what's my other colour that I used? Have a look. Sicilian yellow was too yellow and tangerine was a bit pink, so I'm on a brush because I want to use. So I squeeze quite a lot of water out and then take it off with the sponge. I still use my face wipes when I haven't used a lot of makeup. So I use a face wipe in the morning and night before the cream. And the face wipe looks clean. It's obviously got my face grease on it and any dust and dirt that you pick up, but it doesn't have makeup on it. And I put that into an empty container and I reuse those. So they look very clean. I don't think I've got any handy. They look very clean, but they're perfectly all right. And of course I've stopped using baby wipes because it was just such a waste. So just see if I can reposition everything. The sun's gone behind a tree now, which was kind of it. So there we have. But I'm just not happy with that colour, so I'm going to go over with the Sicilian yellow. And I've got my foot on the table, so it's squeaking. So it's not my foot that's squeaking. So that's slightly better because what I've done is just taken the pink off, but the pink is underneath. And again, Rembrandt used to put bright red under his thin noses, and where the skin's thin, he used to put a very dark red and then paint over. So we've basically done the same, but in watercolour. We've put a warm colour on top, and then we've kind of put the blood in, and then we've put the skin colour over the top, basically. It's not ideal, but it just turns that pinky down a little bit. And if you can see, that is quite wet. But it's just toned it down a little bit because it's just a bit too pink for me, was that. So again, I'm just going to very carefully just take that pink back a little bit. Again, it doesn't bother me too much. I'm not particularly, it wasn't my first choice of colour book, it was just Hobson's choice, but obviously I still don't want to trash it, so now people put pinks and purples and greens and all sorts on the colours, so again, you know, you can't be, but it was just in case we thought that. It's made it slightly better, I think, just slightly. And then she could have some poppy red. Poppy red? I think scarlet. Again, I don't want too much. Yeah, I got a bit much there, but anyhow. I don't think I like that, but never mind. And because I've got that on my brush, I'm just going to do her fingernails. I've just done her fingernails. Now I do need to get rid of that now. So again, that's why I was wetting it. So put some water out, squeeze and twist. That's now clean. Has anybody got any questions, guys? Thanks for stopping by. Hope everybody's all right. I thought that colour for these little things, actually, the little flowers, but I think I might do the poppy red, just a little drop on the end of the paintbrush, and go dark tips to light the opposite way, if that makes any sense. So again, I'm just picking up a little bit, just a pinhead, if that, the tip, and stroke down, and that be pale. The more of a highlight you want, the less colour you want, if that makes any sense. So if you want it all to be the same colour, you have a lot. If you want a good highlight, you want less. Now these little ones are darker. And again, remember, we're actually dealing with this strong poppy red. And look at the lovely pale colours that we've got. Almost to nothing. And again, absolutely love this technique. And it's not difficult to learn, as I say, you will get this within a page. So I don't know if anybody else is watercolouring today, or you're working in pencils. Let's see, sometimes got to think, maybe a little bit of contrast, colour. I do like the softer ones though. And again, we've got one behind here that we need to bring round. Probably in hindsight I could have done that green for some foliage, but and again, sometimes working from one side to another and moving about a bit. Your colours are not going to be the same next to each other, so again, that's another little thing that you learn. Now, if you want the watercolour effect every time, you probably have to clean the brush, because as you can see now, I've got like a flat colour. but again, it's a fairly quick, loose way to work, which is sometimes quite nice and quite freeing, I think. I'm going to put that one slightly darker because I kind of want that one a bit darker. So I've got, from that really, really strong poppy red, I've got a really lovely soft, almost peachy pink. I think that probably is probably supposed to be green. That messed the colour up. I think those little bits surrounding the petals are green, but it's fine. I've done it now, so it's in there. I think I've got them all. I think I'd like that just a bit darker. I do like the first one I did. Again, if you're rushing, you don't always get the best. And I'm working on a slant as well. I've just cleaned the brush again. Oh dear. Oh, Marilyn says she was watercolouring last night. I do quite like it. This is again something you can do while you're watching TV. It's not. You see, I've got a few little crinkles on the back. See, I was working quite wet, but it's all dried. It's not too wet, and it's the rub that causes. It's not actually the water as such. It's the rubbing. So it's done quite well. It's done really well. It's quite fast. So again, I quite like that. I'm going to just touch. I'm not sure I like the mustard colour. I don't know if I like the mustard colour or not, actually. I think I might just leave that one. I'm just going to do her blouse. So we have a yellow, we have a peachy, a pink. I think we may have to make her blouse. I'm not sure. Fuchsia pink would take away. It may take away that, and yellow may be too yucky for her. I'm tempted to leave that white, the little cardigan white. I wonder what we could do with that. Maybe and the gold sienna is going to be too much. There is a tangerine. There's a burnt orange, but I don't know if the burnt orange will set her skin off or not. But again, sometimes you just have to think, oh, go for it. Let's stop messing about. I do actually, I'm just saying Shiraz. I kind of like Shiraz. Again, you flick through, and I don't look here. I'm looking here. So there's the dark purple. I think that might work. So, oops, too much water there. I want a wet brush. I think she could have a darker cardigan. So under here, it is a bit purpley. So under here, a purple. It's quite pale, that, but and quite wet, so we've got to be a little bit careful. And I've lost the sleeve. I missed the sleeve off that one, so I get the impression that it's a sleeve. I mean, you could do that a lot. I'm actually wound round the I'm wound round the laptop, so the iPad. Sorry, so it's a bit difficult for me to work that way backwards, but again, you shouldn't really work backwards because you make so many mistakes. And then the crimson, the paler one, I think I just do the little t-shirt. And if you look, the crimson actually turns into Shiraz. So when you look at Shiraz down here, you've got these two colours. So this colour looks the same as that colour, but one, and sometimes you'll see a pigment is a darker colour than another one. So you want to make that a little bit darker. And I did get a little bit too wet there, but never mind, it's fine, we'll be fine. And then literally palest of pale. And I think we'll give her just a touch of eyeshadow. I don't really want pink or purple. I think maybe just a touch of brown. Just a touch on that side as well. Just to give her a little bit of something. I'm going to go back in there just quickly with this oak and really pick up some colour this time. To make some contrast. So you can really make some more contrasting colours. And then that will make the flowers pop out as well. So we'll make flowers pop out because behind it is going to be kind of dark, even though there's a light in front of it. If that makes any sense, guys, sorry. Hopefully it does. So when you go around the darks, around each flower, they'll pop out. You sometimes just have to be a bit subtle how you do it. So you keep some of those lovely highlights and create some lovely darks. Oh, thank you, Melody, thank you. And again, let's drop more behind that one to make that one pop. So it doesn't take long before you can really make those flowers pop forward. And I think I'm going to leave the yellow, because if I try to touch that yellow, what'll happen is, or the mustard colour I should say, it'll darken it, and if it darkens it, they'll recede. So I'm actually going to leave it so that they can pop out. And again, you can do this several times until you're quite happy that the flowers are popping where you want to pop them. But again, let it rest so you can keep going. But of course, we're leaving as much of the highlights as we can so that the flowers are going to pop out. I think I've just done that bit once, but and again, it's just a lovely, nice way to work. It's just simple. And if I want to just, again, you can make these as dark as many times as you like, but we just have to rest it to dry and not rubbing. But again, we've got another flower that's popped out. And we could create a darker shadow behind that one. And you could actually create a shadow if we wanted to. So you start making shadows as well. So that's another thing we can do, is make shadows. And then that creates things to pop out. So they start to kind of pop out a little bit, if that makes any sense. Has anybody got any questions? I've missed a flower there, so I need to go back. Make sure the brush has got rid of the brown. And I think it was poppy red, wasn't it? And again, I can pop that there. And to get a rich dark, to go behind this one. And this one as well. And then you just have to choose which one you'd like to be the darkest. Let's just put that there. So again, very carefully, because we're working with watercolours, on a non-watercolour page, building up ever so slowly so we get the effect we want, but we've not damaged the page at all. So I've been about an hour on that one, so that wasn't too bad. And again, you can create a shadow if you want. And you'll find little subtle places where you can just make those flowers pop. And then if you go under that one, we can make that strand of hair have a very strong highlight. And then we can go behind there again and then make the other strand come back out again. So I'm going to be just a bit careful how much colour you use, but it doesn't take long before you can get three different areas of and I did that one in the video that won't upload that I did on the ferry with the Kirby Roseanne clock. Just had to keep building up and building up to make all the watch pieces move about and become in front of and behind. And I did that with the inktense, so that wasn't too bad actually. So again, we can really make the tree pop out. Again, make sure that that tree is definitely and we can make them all pop out. So I'll hold that up. I've got some quite nice afternoon. So she's not brilliant, but it took just over an hour, and I can do a bit more to her. Put some more darks in here, and then make those flowers really pop out. Oh, hi Darla, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Anybody else popping in? Sorry about the light, guys. I'm just having trouble with the sun now. So I like the fact that I've got rid of the red on her skin. I mean, she's a bit blotchy, but and don't be tempted to put black in there. Just keep working. We're still fairly flat. I'll show you the crinkles. Look, we've got some crinkles. You can see the crinkles. We can see some of the crinkly, but it's worked really well. It's about how much water I was actually putting on there. It's done really well. And again, when we go under the curls, we can create some more highlights and shadows. But the idea was to get the flowers to pop. That's what was the idea, to get the flowers to pop. So we've got some quite nice sky today. Look, guys, look, I still got my Christmas things up, even though I was poorly. So we've got some quite nice sky. Bungo's asleep on his on his thing there, and Alfie's asleep too. And Jessie hasn't come out yet. I was hoping Jessie might pop out. I think she's just under this chair. Hi, Jess. Hi, Jessie does. Yes, you see, it's woken the boy up. He's so jealous. Hi, Alf. Alfie. He's ignoring me. He's ignoring me. He's got the big, huge chair. Have you got the big chair, Alf? He's spoiled, is that Alf? He's spoiled. Hello, darling. Hello. Did we wake you up? We were having a nap. They're having a nap, Mummy. They woke me up from my nap. Yeah, we can't disturb the boy, can we? His nap. Yes, we have a lovely sky today, don't we? Which is the one that I did in the... Oh, it's not in Mythomorphia. It's the new one. Oh, not the newest one, but Phantomorphia. The one I did on the train. So I actually think I'm going to do one of those now. Oops, you stay there. There's a good one. Let's pull out Phantomorphia. There's a lot of books I bought to use pencils with, so I may have to rethink that one. So that was okay. It's coloured, easier on the hand than the pencils, so we can't grumble. And that was from the Timeless Beauties from Colouring Heaven, which I bought at Tesco's for $4.99. So it actually worked quite well. So you can use the Derwent watercolour brush on there. So this is the one that I did on the ferry, coming back from Ireland. And I'm going to have to rejiggle the camera again, guys. My iPad, I'm still on the iPad because I bought the wrong thing. I'm going to have to go get some more water because Bungle stuck his face in the water the minute he saw it. So this one here, again, looking at the bringing the darks, doing the lights first, and then I've uploaded it several times. It will not upload. I don't know why. But trying to keep the pales, but making the cogs underneath, then the cogs underneath, those cogs kind of set apart. I think I did one in watercolour. I don't know which watercolours I did. No. Did I write it down? Heavens above, missus. I don't know how I did that one now. That was the one I started last week. I don't recognise any colours. Might be Derwent pencils. Because I was using Derwent pencils on this one. But I was scrubbed and activated with a #1 brush. So that when I was actually using the pencil to scratch the colour on, and then I was activating it. I think this was Derwent pencils where I was just using it from a paper palette. I think. I don't know if I videoed this one or not. Again, when I'm looking at these colours, I think this is the Derwent colours. If anybody can remember what I did last time. So this one is what I was trying to do with the hair, is to do a paler colour and then do darker and darker. Now, luckily, the Kirby paper is that little bit stronger. Another very easy way to work. And this was really slapping it on, very similar to what I did today. Really slapping it, slapdash, just touch and go. But again, I was on the ferry and I wanted to colour, and I was not using the colours I would normally use because I was using them almost neat. I think I was actually mixing colours here. Because my husband bought me it, but I did have a very bad headache. So again, I didn't really want to do a masterpiece. I wanted to use it for therapy, if that makes any sense. And so that's what I was trying to do. Sorry about the light, guys. I'll rejiggle it in a second. see what else we've got in here. Oh, that might be a good one to do today. Thinking of the reds and the greens for the dragons. And I have put my little piece of plastic somewhere. I need to find it because I forget what colours they are, even though there's only 12 in there. Let's see if I bobbed it in here. Because I found it and then I've lost it again. No, it's gone. It's gone. Just find that. It's definitely been put somewhere. I bought some other pencils as well, but not really been able to do them. So I used those, and I've got another couple of books that I've been wanting to do for a while. This is a book that I bought from the Abbey. I think I bought it from the Abbey, or I bought it from the Faith Mission. I think I bought this one from the Faith Mission in Ireland. Meditate to a timeless wisdom of Proverbs with inspirational in illustrations. And I think I kind of like this book. And I think this book is going to go well with these colours. I think it's going to be one of those things that's going to go quite well with the colours. Now I do have... I did want to use that watercolour set. Can I get to it? I really think I can get to it. Well, have a look and see if I can get to it. I don't want to make too much noise in this corner because I am conscious that little miss is in there. So just bear with me a second. Not much less room, not much room. Now I have managed to get one of these. The problem is opening them actually is now that's my 24 set. These are the full pans. I work in here. This is what I want to start working with, is these Cotman watercolors, because that's lovely for travel, but I like these what I call traditional colors. And if I can remember them off the top of my head, I think we've got a lemon yellow, we've got a cadmium yellow, gamboge, cadmium orange, vermilion. Now that one looks pinkier than that one. I can actually double check, can't I? I can actually say what they are. Lemon yellow hue, so that's a lemon yellow. Cadmium yellow. Cadmium yellow dark. Oh, it's not, well, it's normally like a gamboge. It's not far off a gamboge. Cadmium orange. Then that one's cadmium red hue. And this is cadmium red dark, I think, deep. And that's slightly pinkier. Oops, we've got one there. What's that one? That's a cadmium red. There's two. Wait a second. That's a cadmium red. Pale. Cadmium red pale. So instead of a vermilion, they've done a middle cadmium red, but vermilion is in between orange. This is Elysian crimson. Purple, which one is it? Dioxidine purple. Just purple lake. And this one looks like, and I don't usually have that there. I have that one there. This is my cerulean blue. Oh no, I don't, beg your pardon. They are white. This should be my ultramarine because it's a purple blue. And then this one is intense blue, which is a darker blue. Then we've got a cobalt blue. And then we have cerulean blue. And then we have the greens. So we have sap. Now I would prefer hookers, but this one is Viridian. I'm not a Viridian girl, but it's growing on me. I normally put the white at the end. I don't know where I put it. I think I'll put it there because I'm going to put my pink next to my. So this is what they call light to dark. So I put my white up there. But of course, white and black, very rarely use them. Never actually use the white in watercolour. But that's just me. Then we have yellow ochre. This is, I think, raw sienna. And we have burnt sienna. Now, raw sienna and burnt sienna, oh, beg your pardon, this is light red. Burnt sienna, they're very, very warm browns. And of course, the red is the light red. It's called light red, but you can, it's good. It's also called a brick red. So it's not a red red, it's a brown red. So it's good for foxes' tails, that kind of red, a brick red. And there's another red I used it for. But it's kind of what I would call a brown red. It's a very reddy brown. So that's why it's down here. And the siennas are a warmy brown. And then we've got raw umber. Umber's a cold brown. So your cold barks, puddles, deep dark water, that's quite a nice colour. So raw umber, and then burnt umber is a brownier one, it's a darker one. And then we've got Payne's grey and black. And I think that particular set, again, I would call that gamboge, and I would call one of those vermilion. That would be the perfect set. And I would have hooker's green instead of Viridian. That would be the perfect set. They are full pans, so there's quite a lot in there. And for watercolouring in a colour book, or even doing watercolours, you wouldn't want more than that. If you want a tangerine, you mix these two together. If you want the orange and what I would call gamboge, if you want some light sap, pale greens, pea greens, you've got the yellow into the greens. Remember, we can put all those 3 yellows into these 2 greens, and you've got another 3 greens, and you can do the same with the Viridian. You can also then add all these yellows to all these blues, and you've got another set of greens. And then you can start putting a little bit of brown in there, or a bit of orange in there, and you've got another range of dark greeny browns and olives. So you've got about 50 greens by mixing just 2 variations of these colours. Hope that makes sense, guys. So I really love that. That's my favourite set. And so that's a really good set. And I kind of think that now I'm older and slightly wiser, that, you know, this was £30. I think this is the perfect set. You can mix millions of colours, but this is more of a traditional one. And you find that when you're looking at things like the Victorian flower fairies, if I can reach, you know, you can see the colours in these. This is a beautiful set that Suzanne sent to me. Oh, my iPad rather is a bit and there's a lot of Victorian watercolorists and even the impressionists. This is a traditional set that they would use. Now, I think they like Viridian, but I'm not a Viridian person. But you can see there's the yellows in there. I think there is a bit of Viridian in there, but that's the sap green. So if you look at some vintage and Victorian work, you can see, now you see, I see cadmium yellow gamboge in that one. The beautiful colours. And then there is actually a little bit of, I think that's hooker's green in there. So again, absolutely stunning colours. The poppy is definitely there in here. I'm sorry, the light is, let me do that with it. There we go. If you look at the wings, that's a light vermilion, which is an orange red. There's some cad red in there. There's not too much pink in there, but there is a bit of probably the cadmium deep, and that is slightly pinkier than a cadmium. So again, you can see the colours in there. There's some viridian in there. There's a green in there that's made with a very dark blue. There's some sap green in there. And so you can see the colours in the vintage colours. Now I think if it was good enough for them, it's good enough for my colour books. Hope that makes sense. Oh, hi Robin, welcome to Bonnie's Designs. Just having a bit of a whinge about my colours. Now, a lady last week was talking about mud, and because I was a bit disorientated, if you mixed 3 colours together, you will get, if you mix the 2 yellows together, then the blue, you get a green. If you mixed yellow, blue and red, you'll get a dark, dirty colour. But if you mixed more than that, you get mud, because you're using 3 primaries. And remember, if you want to make a black, you want the 3 primary colours. If you want greys, you mix them to a certain degree. So a red black, you'd have more red. So you want yellow and blue, and you add red. If you want a green black, you add more yellow and blue and less red. But everything goes to black. So that's why you get mud. You get dark, deep colours. But I love some muds. Absolutely love some muds. So I might do a colour thing when I get upstairs with that in mind, mixing mud. What is mud and how do you get mud? Now, the only exception to the rule is the Derwent watercolour pencils. And you can mix every pencil on here and you won't get mud. Don't ask me why. That's the only rule. The Derwent watercolour pencils, I mixed in that Imagimorphia. There's the pineapple page. There's a video on that. One's done with inktense pencils and one's done with watercolour pencils. And I also did it with pastels as well, but they were in the same colour range and it works. So I mixed about 16 colours, all sands and stone colours, and when I mixed them together I didn't get mud. But if I'd have put blue in there and red in there more, I would have got a dark dirty grey. So you get mud because every colour if you mix the 3 primaries, you get black or a mud, a dirty dark grey colour. If you've got slightly more red and more red and blue, you get a brownie muddy colour. If you, as I say, put more yellow in it and green, because your blue makes the green, you will get a greeny dirty watercolour. And again, sometimes I love playing with mud colours. I call them grunge, dirty grey colours, and I did a couple of videos on that of grunge and dulling colours down, because of course we've got the brightest colours, but sometimes greys, and especially the metal Mickeys as I call them, and the metal sections, they just do grunge for me. You see, I've put neo colours, grungy colours on my... Oh, I've frozen. Sorry, guys. Have I frozen? What have I done? I may have frozen, guys. I may have to come back. So that's Neocolor 2's complementary colours, which I like to use when I'm using them on metal. And my friend actually at the Abbey took that a step further, and she worked in pencil. she's actually coloured one of her Mythomorphia metal butterflies. I think it's the one with the bug and the, not the butterfly, it's the beetles. She's done them in pencil, light and dark. Yes, so sorry guys, I'm going to have to reshuffle because I've gone off. So apologies for that. But when we come back, I shall work in another colour book. I shall work in another book with my watercolours and my trusty little Derwent watercolour #1 brush, because it's so easy and it doesn't hurt your hands. So if you can come right out of Bunny's Designs and go back onto YouTube, when I come back on in a minute or two, it should kick back in. So sorry guys, this particular one will show live, but it won't be live, it's frozen. So I think you have to go right back out into just YouTube and then find me again, and it might bring up the fresh one, and I'll be about a minute or two. So thanks for watching.